What's up guys, DS here with another Buy, Sell, Hold Dynasty Fantasy Football video today. Join me for an in-depth analysis, player by player, team by team, if I would buy, sell, or hold them going into the early 2019 offseason. We'll be covering each Dynasty relevant player, and today we will be going over the Minnesota Vikings, so let's get into it. So starting with quarterbacks, we'll have a tough decision on Kirk Cousins, and I suppose I'd hold, but I guess Skins fans are right. I don't know what it is, but he can't win the big games. He truly is blind or deaf to pressure, it seems like. Hopefully he starts the game hot, because heaven forbid the first drive doesn't go good and he'll be shook rest of the game. He only looks good in garbage time, even though garbage time is good for fantasy, but still, you gotta hold while he's on the Vikings. I'd be looking to sell possibly to a QB needy team during the next couple seasons here. I think mid-season next year will be his peak value. He turns 31 on 8/19, so he still has 2 more years of that guaranteed money on his contract, but man, it was pretty disappointing for him this year, so gotta hold, wait till the value climbs back up a bit. Behind Kirk, we got Kyle Slaughter. They really like him here. He reads the field well, has a strong arm. He balled out in the preseason, made some nice plays. Local beat writers have gave him a lot of praise for how he's looked in practice, and you know Kirk has had his ups and downs in 2018, but that said, Kyle Slaughter's really a super flex stash only. He'll never compete for the job while Kirk's there, but if he gets injured, Slaughter's the guy for sure. Trevor Siemian, he'll be gone in 2019, so we don't gotta worry about him. So if you're in a Superflex league, check your waiver wire for Kyle Slaughter. He's definitely worth a pickup. I'd maybe offer a fourth, but I wouldn't really pay up a lot right now. Kirk's gonna be there a while still. So moving on to the RBs, which leads us to Dalvin Cook, and he is a buy for me going into this offseason. A lot of owners may be worried and looking to sell after a disappointing first 2 years in the league. He's been plagued with injuries and have had questionable usage, but it looks like he's elite when the ball's in his hands. He showcases some of the best vision and decision making in the league. Mike Zimmer and Kevin Stefanski want to run the ball more in the future. He's still young and improving. He turns 24 on 8/10, passes the eye test, looks explosive, could be primed for a big bounce back year in 2019. I'd pay 2 firsts for him easily right now. Well, maybe not easily, but if they're mid to late first, then for sure. Overall, Cook is an extremely efficient runner. Once handed the ball, he usually recognizes and deals with any backfield penetration. He uses strong vision to find creases and cutback lanes. He shows the patience, stride variation, and aggressiveness to create holes for himself. He showcases strong bursts through the hole, hip flexibility to change direction quickly, ability to bounce off indirect blows without breaking stride. In the open field, he can make defenders miss with his strong jump cut. That thing's nasty, man. And he can weave through traffic. His strong second level vision to find open spots, turn long gains into touchdowns. Dalvin's long speed enables him to maintain initial separation, but when he's finishing runs, sometimes he's prone to dancing almost. His pad level is not consistent, and it hinders his ability to finish runs a little bit. His fumble rate is a little high, and in the passing game, he was primarily used out of the backfield. He showcased good catch technique, but he had some drops. Pretty abysmal in pass protection. He has trouble recognizing assignments and fails to follow through with good technique on stand-up or chip blocks, but he has flashes of good technique there. And with all that said, he is still a buy for me. I'm a big fan. If the Vikings give him 15 to 20 carries a game consistently next year, with Latavius Murray gone in 2019, I believe Cook has the potential to be one of the top 5 backs in fantasy, so he's a buy. Moving on to Latavius Murray, like I said, he'll likely be gone in 2019, so he's a hold, because it still looks like he has enough juice. I mean, he's looked pretty good at times this year. If you still own Latavius, no one's likely knocking on your door for him, so you gotta hold and see what happens with him this offseason. Maybe he'll land in a better situation, and then I'd be looking to sell him after he signs somewhere. He's not as old as one might think. He only turns 28 in February. Even though it is getting up there for a running back, he still could have a year or 2 left of decent production on another team left in him. With most owners privy to Latavius leaving in 2019, this guy isn't much of a sleeper these days, but that is Mike Boone, and you guessed it, he's a buy. Coming into the year, he was ranked 2nd for athleticism among all 2018 rookie running backs, only behind Saquon Barkley. His SPARQ score was in the 90th percentile, with his burst being one of the best in the league. Mike Boone has high-end acceleration and speed. He's a physical runner who runs with a lot of force and attitude. He won't shy away from contact. He enjoys it, if anything. He reminds me of a mini Marion Barber almost. I see him as the backup to Dalvin Cook going into 2019. He and Rock Thomas really have excellent balance. Pass blocking is lacking lacking for Mike Boone, though. That might have been why he didn't get drafted in this strong rookie class last year. Next up on the depth chart, we have Amir Abdullah, but he's pretty much a non-factor here. He likely won't be back with the team in 2019. I'd be looking to sell for whatever I can get for him, or drop him for extra roster space even. I really don't think he's long for the NFL anymore. Too bad. That one run in preseason, man, he looked so good, but it all went downhill from there. Last but not least, we have Rock Thomas, and he isn't really a buy for me, but he's more of a stash, only because he's likely on your waivers. But if a savvy owner has him and you have room, offering a 4th or 5th round rookie pick wouldn't hurt. Thomas was one of the better undrafted free agent running backs to come out this year, and he's on the practice squad right now. He got hyped a lot in camp by Minnesota beat writers along with Mike Boone. I would monitor both of their off seasons pretty closely. While Mike Boone is the better runner of the two, Rock Thomas looks like the better pass catcher and pass blocker, so we may see more opportunities on that alone. Boone is viewed more as a Murray replacement, and Rock is viewed as the third down scat back to say. They'll both be 24 going into next year, so that's it for the running backs. With wide receivers, we'll start with the Miracle Man himself, Stephon Diggs, and even though his price is already pretty high, he's still a buy for me. He's very young, just turned 25, and he's only getting better. Should be relevant for a long time and a top 15 wide receiver for the next 3 to 5 years. Diggs is a smooth route runner who always seems to be open. Kirk just never has the time to target him. When the Vikings need someone to count on, Diggs, he's their go-to guy. He is signed through 2024, arguably their best 5th round pick in Vikings history. Only concern here is injuries, but they've all been pretty small, sort of fluky, which is why I think right now is probably the cheapest you'll ever be able to get him over the next couple years. I only see his value continuing to rise. Not much to say here with Diggs and Thielen, but with Thielen, I would treat him a little differently. He would be a hold for me. Watching Thielen, it's so fun. With those yellow gloves, I mean, what's not to love? He catches everything. After a record-breaking start this year, Thielen, he really kind of cooled off though in the second half of the 2018 season. I might consider selling him if he has a hot start to next year though. That'll likely be his peak value because he is getting up there in age and that might cause concern with some people, but honestly he doesn't have the usual wear and tear as most other older wide receivers, and injury history is basically nothing. Every year he's improved, so I could easily see him producing like he has been with the Vikings until his contract is up in 2021. On the other hand though, is the second half Thielen, the Thielen we will see in 2019? I guess we'll find out. I don't think I mentioned, but he turns 29 on 8/22. And next we have Laquan Treadwell, and what a sad story it is. If you drafted Treadwell and have held him for this long, then you might as well go down with the ship. He has one more year left on his rookie deal, and I almost guarantee they will not pick up his 5th year option. There is a chance the Vikings trade him for pennies this next offseason, but who would pick his 1st round contract up? He might get cut now that I think about it, which at this point is probably what Treadwell owners are hoping for. A new change of scenery might be his best option, but his play this year didn't really help his chances. He had way too many drops. Only positives are he's actually a pretty damn good blocker. 3rd wide receiver spot is still up in the air for the Vikings. He's had to deal with several offensive changes between coordinators and quarterbacks. He had a pretty nasty injury in college. He's a big body on a rookie contract, 1st round pick, still the youngest wide receiver on the Vikings roster, even though he's played 3 seasons, believe it or not. But that's it. There are some pretty big negatives that are hard to ignore, like PFF's ranking of 113 out of 117 wide receivers. He had the 2nd worst drop rate in the NFL. He was also a healthy scratch in week 16 because Stefanski came out and said, quote, "It was a business decision. They felt it was best for the team and we got the win and that's all that matters," end quote. When the coaching change took place, Laquan was actually asked the change in offensive coordinators could result in more passes coming his way. He responded, which is pretty funny. He said, "Honestly, yeah, I do." He said, "I'm always free." Do you really watch the games? I'm always free, to one of the Minnesota beat writers. And you'd think the guy with the worst drop rate in the NFL, you'd think he'd be a little more humble. He's actually number 6 on the depth chart right now, behind Beebe, Zylstra, Robinson, and they're all ahead of him. So yeah, not looking good for our boy. That's all right though, because we got Chad Beebe, the son of Bills legend Don Beebe. And yeah, I'm buying Chad everywhere I can. Mike Zimmer said Chad Beebe was making so many plays on the scout team that reminded him of what Stephon Diggs did his rookie season, which is high praise, but it's easy to see how his route running skills are on point and continue to improve. I've seen a couple comments downplaying Chad's 4.6 40 time like it's a huge knock, but for guys like him, it's really not that important. It's more about those 10, 20 yards and how you make those cuts. The Vikings aren't really sending him out on fly and wheel routes, you know? Beat writers in Minnesota sports radio have been hyping him up all the way back to training camp. I really do believe he's poised for a breakout 2019 year. I really like the way he goes about getting separation. He leans into a guy just enough to throw him off the route, and I was actually higher on Brandon Zylstra going into the year, but Beebe showed as much in one game than Zylstra did all season. I like what Beebe brings to the table in the slot for the Vikings. I know people say it's a lazy comparison to say he's like another small white receiver, but he does really seem like another Welker Edelman type player. So there you go, Chad Beebe, he's a buy. I'd be even willing to pay a third round rookie pick for him if he is already owned by a savvy owner, but try to get him for a fourth if you can, but shit, I'd pay for a third, preferably a late 2019 third, but if it has to be early, then so be it. The 19 class is pretty thin, so I'd rather take my chances with Chad Beebe. Then we have Aldrick Robinson, the guy who only catches touchdown passes. I mean, that's all he does. It's crazy. Even though he's not worth owning, he's just a guy, typical Jag. Moving on. I don't think he'll even be on the team in 2019. And then we have Brandon Zylstra. If you can, I'd stash him if you have the room. He's a name to monitor over the offseason. He's a former Canadian football star, played 2 years. He had an average rookie year, but then he actually led the league in receiving yards and had a fantastic training camp and preseason 2018, but he was very quiet in the season. He played mostly special teams and didn't really get very many opportunities, and he'll likely be their punt returner in the future with Marcus Sherrills getting up there in age and likely won't be back in 2019, so he's a guy to pay attention. Stash him if you got room, if you're interested, but he's a name to monitor at the very least going into the offseason. Lastly, for the wide receivers, we have Jeff Badet, and not much I'll say on him. He's a practice squad guy who has blazing speed, but he's just another name to monitor in the offseason. Moving on to tight ends, we have Kyle Rudolph, and he's a sell for me. I'd shop him around to any tight end needy teams over the offseason and try to use that big game he had back in week 16 while it's still in some people's minds, but he's just too inconsistent for me. But because those tight ends are so thin, he usually finishes as a tight end 1 each year. You'll usually never feel good starting him. I'm just not interested in Kyle Rudolph. I'd be looking to sell him for a third. Behind Kyle Rudolph, we have David Morgan and Tyler Conklin, and we won't spend a lot of time on these guys. They're just a couple names to monitor in the offseason. Tyler Conklin, I'd rather stash him over Morgan if your league is that deep or it's a tight end premium. But Kyle Rudolph, he's going to be there the next 2 years for sure. The Vikings, they really don't utilize 2 tight ends. As long as Rudolph is there, any other tight end is pretty much irrelevant. Remember Michael Pruitt hype, Bucky Hodges hype? Yeah, nah, just check back in a year on this one. That's it though, guys. To wrap it up, I'll do a quick list on everyone. Cousins, he was a buy. Slaughter, stash. Cook, buy. Latavius was a hold. Mike Boone, he's a buy. Rock Thomas, stash. Diggs, buy. Thielen, hold. Treadwell, hold. Sell. Good luck. Beebe, buy. Zylstra, stash. Jeff Badet, monitor. Kyle Rudolph, sell. David Morgan, monitor. Tyler Conklin, monitor. So that's it. Thanks for checking out this vid, guys. The next video, I'll probably stay in the AFC, so I'll see you guys then. And this is a new channel, so it'd be really appreciated if you left a like and subscribed. I'll be making more content like this all off season, so thanks again. Peace.